Worldwide, we are dying from diseases that were once unheard of. Each year, roughly 10 million people die from cancer and 20 million from heart disease. Alzheimer's disease affects almost 50 million people, and 500 million of us have diabetes. Less lethal, though highly relevant, 40% of men over 45 have low testosterone, and 10% of women experience menstrual irregularities and infertility. All of these disorders and more have one thing in common. Each of them, to varying degrees, is caused or exacerbated by a change in the actions and levels of the hormone insulin, a condition known as insulin resistance. And you might have it. Odds are you do. It is the most common disorder worldwide. In fact, answer these questions to yourself. Do you have more fat around your belly than you think is healthy? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have high levels of blood triglycerides? Do you have patches of darker skin or small bumps of skin around your neck, armpits, or elsewhere? If someone is moderately overweight and has hypertension, the person is almost assuredly insulin resistant. Compared with having normal insulin levels, elevated insulin increases the risk of heart disease by roughly 40 times. But what of the brain? Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia worldwide and more ubiquitous every day. In fact, the connection between Alzheimer's disease and insulin resistance is so strong that many people consider Alzheimer's disease to be an extension of type 2 diabetes, occasionally called type 3 diabetes. As the brain becomes insulin resistant, its ability to utilize glucose for fuel is diminished. As a brief aside, other neurological conditions appear to share a similarly compromised ability to use glucose as a fuel for the brain, including, to differing degrees, migraines, epilepsy, depression, and even some instances of autism. A final disorder connected with insulin is of broad interest: body fat. Many scientific reports reveal that insulin therapy significantly reduces metabolic rate, accounting for as much as 30% of the fat gain. At this point, you're expecting me to give you a clear, simple solution, and here it is. We must control insulin to control metabolic health. When carbohydrate is consumed in the form of pure glucose, insulin dramatically increases to well above 10 times over normal and can remain elevated for several hours. When a person eats pure protein, insulin will usually increase slightly over normal levels for a time. Fat consumption, in contrast, has no effect on insulin. Based on these data and dozens of related clinical studies, 3 conclusions have become pillars for me. 1. We need to control carbohydrates. If the carbohydrate comes in a bag or a box with a barcode, it's likely one to be careful with. Of course, sugar, in its many forms and clever names, is uniquely terrible. This includes fruit juice and smoothies. If you want to control insulin and enjoy fruit, eat it. Don't drink it. 2, we should prioritize protein. A case has recently been made in scientific literature that recommendations of dietary protein are insufficient for most people to maintain and promote muscle and bone mass, which is critical for maintaining good health and insulin sensitivity throughout life. Depending on age and activity, an optimal level of dietary protein is around 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. Importantly, this need for dietary protein increases with age. As we get older, we need more protein. 3, we need to stop fearing fat. We have a strong cultural aversion to dietary fat. In fact, by many estimates, we eat a smaller portion of our diets from fat now than ever before. Dietary fat is a remarkable energy source. Because it has no effect on insulin on its own, in a way, it has the ability to feed our bodies, but not our fat. For the second part of this process, I recommend you test what you learn. When you think you've found sufficient evidence to support an ideal lifestyle plan to fight insulin resistance and its related complications, try it for a month. Keep in mind that the changes you make will ideally be sufficiently practical to follow indefinitely. By basing a lifestyle plan on eating less and exercising more, we are ensuring an almost constant battle against hunger, and hunger usually wins.
2003 or 2004, we got a bod pod at the Eagles, and we all threw a bunch of money in the pot for whoever would be the fattest, but also who could be the leanest. And I remember years ago reading that if you ate enough protein in a caloric deficit, you would not lose any muscle. So I ended up basically just eating ground beef for every meal for like the next like 6-8 weeks. And that was when I showed up at 306 at 282 pounds of lean body mass at like, I think I was just like 7.8 or 8% body fat in the bod pod. And the dude was like, we've never tested anybody over 300 pounds under 10%. I think strength is the platform on which everything's built. I think, everybody should lift weights. It doesn't matter if it looks like grandma or whoever. I think lifting weights is really important. I mean, there's just certain things like, at least for us, like people that lift weights tend to be more durable. The people that tend to eat more protein carry more muscle mass. And the people that, and I'm sure, Doc, you know this, that if you look at the actuary charts, the people that carry the most amount of lean body mass tend to live the longest.
And then we come to protein, and we have a look at this study that was done in 2002. I think it was by Dawson and Hughes. And over 3 years, they had a population, the study population was males and females over the age of 65, so postmenopausal females, old men. And they found that in the group with the lowest protein intake, who were supplemented with vitamin D and calcium, their bone mineral density continued to decline. But in the group with the highest protein intake, they actually had reversal. They had increase in bone mineral density. So this demonstrates that just through nutritional intervention alone, it is possible to reverse osteopenia and osteoporosis without any pharmacological agents, without bisphosphonates, without these other things going on. And this makes perfect sense because 40% of the dry weight of bone is protein.
So I realized that satiety comes from protein and minerals and the non-energy portion of your food. And then in order to fix the problem, you have to rebalance satiety with energy. You know what I mean? Best way to do that is to target protein and go out of your way to eat foods with the highest protein percentage possible. And then you're going to get your protein and mineral and nutrient satiety at a lower energy intake. And like you said, if you're just looking at calories, it's depressing as hell because you can only eat, 2 calories a day. And personally, I think the way out of that is an insanely high protein percentage. This is just one more reason why I'm focused on the protein to energy ratio rather than calories. I would encourage someone with a huge amount of adaptive thermogenesis to crank their protein up, maybe up to 50% of calories. You're going to be able to be weight stable or even continue to lose at a much higher caloric intake. The thermic effect of food is going to be higher. Energy expenditure is going to be higher. You want to diet down on the highest calories you can get, and the way to pull that off is to make most of them protein.